Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om Dhyayamo Dhavalavagunthanavatim Tejomayim Naishtikim Snigdhapangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmitashrimukhim Vatsalyamritavarshini Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapini Syamangim Madhusikta Suktim Amritaanandatmika Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. We are yet again coming together, convening for our weekly scriptural discussion. It's been quite a gap, I guess. The last session that we had when we ended Bhaja Govindam was end of July, so August, September, October, November. For various reasons, we couldn't start it earlier, but at least with Amma's grace, we are able to start today. And this time, we're going to focus on the 40 verses of Hanuman Chalisa, dedicated to Lord Hanuman, who is given the highest regard, the highest amount of respect, highest amount of reverence in terms of how a devotee should be, a true devotee should be. When it comes to devotion, the name that goes synonymous with devotion is Hanuman. Hanuman is this very enchanting, very profound, very very important character in the epic of Ramayana, who was a great devotee of Lord Rama. And one of the main reasons why we probably should try to learn from Hanuman is, we being spiritual aspirants who are trying to grow spiritually, we'll have to see what can we learn from Hanuman. Because Hanuman wasn't humble because he didn't have abilities. Rather, he was abundant, or he was overwhelmingly full of abilities. In spite of all that, he was extremely humble, or extremely in the attitude of a devotee, which we ought to learn from. Because for us, even a small reason is good enough for our ego to bloat much bigger than it actually should be. Larger than, what do you call it, larger than life size, larger than life. Our ego is usually bloated as big as that. It's usually larger than life. And Hanuman probably is the right direction to look at to make it work otherwise. So the overall premise, the overall idea that we are going to go after is the attitude of devotion, because Hanuman Chalisa consists of all the various verses, because it is again written by a devotee of Hanuman, devotee of Lord Rama. So Hanuman is praised in all the ways possible, but in midst of all those praises, or all these abilities that Lord Hanuman had, how did he still practice devotion? How did he still practice humility is what we need to reflect on. So the overall focus that we will have in terms of going through the verses of Hanuman Chalisa is to focus on devotion, bhakti. Now, so far we have discussed about Bhagavad Gita, we discussed Guru Gita, we discussed Tattva Bodha, we discussed Bhaja Govindam, and of course we discussed Lalita Sahasranama. keeping Lalita Sahasranama aside, most of the other texts that we discussed is more Vedantic in flavor. It is more about the supreme soul, the Paramatma, or the individual soul, and try to realize my true self, which is sans everything which is ephemeral in nature, which is impermanent in nature. And our focus with those scriptures was such. Lalita Sahasranama, on the other hand, was focused on the Divine Mother, but at the same time, it was quite Vedantic in nature, as you may have noticed when we discussed the explanation of Lalita Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother. But on the other hand, Hanuman Chalisa is very simple in nature. It is literally narrating the various deeds of Lord Hanuman, the context in which Lord Hanuman acted in various ways and how they inspire us. So here the focus is more about bhakti. And the other scriptures, when we discuss about the Vedantic topics, they are more in terms of jnana, knowledge. So we call it the path of knowledge, the path of contemplation, jnana yoga. Whereas this particular text, we will try to focus on bhakti yoga. Not that either of these are different. Of course, the flavor is different, but the gist of both these paths are one and the same. Amma says bhakti and jnana are wings of the same bird. They complement each other. It is just impossible to fly with one wing. We need both the wings. A bird would need both the wings so as to soar up in the sky. Similarly, we need both bhakti and jnana. There is no possibility of, let me just be a jnana yogi. Let me just focus on knowledge and nothing else. Just not possible. On the other side, thinking, why go through all this jnana yoga and contemplation? Let me just focus on bhakti. That also is incomplete in nature. For achieving something, so as to get to our goal, we definitely need to have domain knowledge about that particular field or that particular thing that we are dealing with. Jnana Yoga points to that, to gain the right domain knowledge so as to proceed or progress in that field. And Bhakti Yoga, on the other side, it points to all the qualities that we need to develop so as to achieve the goal. Just having the domain knowledge alone will not help us to achieve the goal. Just having the domain knowledge but no right qualities. When we talk about qualities, we're talking about dedication, we're talking about perseverance, patience, faith, trust, all of them. If we don't have any of these and just the domain knowledge, it's more likely that we're going to fail in what our endeavor is. On the other side, if we have only patience and perseverance and all these qualities but no domain knowledge, again, that is going to be an incomplete effort that we would put in. Similarly, we need the right qualities to develop, which comes forth through the path of bhakti. And on the other side, we also need to have right understanding of what we need to do, which we develop through the path of jnana, path of knowledge. For example, if we take the Apollo 11 project of NASA, the first spacecraft that landed on the face of moon, definitely a lot of effort, lot of time and effort and dedication went into the whole project to become successful, right? First of all, there had to be domain knowledge from a variety of fields, right? There had to be very precise calculations, very precise knowledge about space and astronomy. There had to be people who had the right knowledge about mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering. There had to be people who were very well versed with atmosphere and meteorology, people who were well versed in computer science because it was all controlled by computer to a good extent, electrical and computer engineering with all the gadgets that were used for this purpose. People had to be quite spot on in terms of nutrition, in terms of health, in terms of all the medical issues that one may face in this project. people, there was no discounting in any of these. People did need very specific, very precise knowledge in all these fields so as to make the project work. But at the same time, just having this expertise was not good enough for Apollo to succeed. On the other hand, all those who were involved in the project, they had to develop, they had to practice and exercise hard work and perseverance. There is no doubt all those who worked in that project definitely persevered. They definitely put in a lot of hard work, their heart and soul into it. They had to develop understanding. They had to develop acceptance. They had to put up with people they like and people they don't like, both. And they had to develop that attitude, else that project would have never been successful. At the same time, they needed patience. It's not that I'm starting the project today, tomorrow I'm landing in moon. The whole process probably took years and years of effort. So patience and each failure that they faced, they needed patience for that. They had to change it from a failure to a challenge as a stepping stone to move forward. They needed to have faith in themselves. They needed to have faith in everyone involved. They needed to have faith in the whole project per se. Only then could they achieve it. So if they didn't have the latter, it wouldn't be a successful project that we would talk about today. So both the domain knowledge was very important. At the same time, these values that we need, the virtues that we need so as to make or help apply the domain knowledge in real world is also equally important. So just not having knowledge or just having the quality alone is not good enough. We need both knowledge and the qualities. That's why Amma says they are both Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are wings of the same bird. For the bird to fly, both of them have to equally contribute. To acquire the knowledge, the case of Apollo project that we talked about, mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, atmosphere, meteorology, computer science, electrical engineering, medicine, all these fields, all those who are involved, they just didn't become electrical engineers or mechanical engineers or doctors or scientists just overnight. They put in a lot of effort. There was a lot of effort and time involved in it. Similarly, to develop the right attitude too, it's not something we will just get like that. Like tomorrow I'm going to become patient. It's not going to work. To become patient, even that needs a lot of effort and time. So both of them are equally difficult to achieve. There is no one inferior or superior path here. Both of them are equally important. Just that when we choose a particular path, that I want to go through the path of knowledge, I keep that as priority and use the other as a support, a complementing factor. Similarly, if I want to go to the path of devotion, I keep the other path. I cannot ignore the other path, rather use that as a complementing factor to this particular path. So both these paths, when we consider, the goal or the objective is one and the same. What is the objective? We have discussed it through Bhagavad Gita. We have discussed it through Lalita Sahasranama when we talked about devotion, or we talked about jnana, contemplation, or atma, etc., the supreme soul. We discussed, we have reiterated it so many times. The prime objective as a spiritual aspirant is either of these paths. The prime objective is to let go of our ego, to overcome our ego. And as we overcome our ego, we automatically realize our true self. That is the common objective of both. Just that the approach is different. In Jnana Yoga, we try to logically rule out our ego and try to realize who I am otherwise. That is my true self. So we logically, the path of neti, the path of negation. No, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. And finally, I find myself. Finally, what I find myself is my true self, is the path of knowledge. And path of devotion, bhakti, is where we are practicing the attitude of surrendering that ego. Here we are not logically negating the ego, rather we are trying to surrender the ego and surrender the ego to a higher force. be it our guru, be it a deity who we are devoted to. We use them as the central point, and we try to overcome our ego with the reference point of the guru or the deity. So both are achieving the same, overcoming the ego, just the approach is different. But at the same time, when we want to logically negate our ego, we need some amount of bhakti. And when we say bhakti, patience, perseverance, hard work, acceptance, faith. And at the same time, when we are trying to surrender our ego, just surrendering our ego is not just possible like that. I just think today, or we discussed about it during the scriptural discussion, tomorrow I'm going to surrender my ego to Amma when the webcast happens in the morning. Is not going to work. We need to develop the right understanding so as to get to that. So both jnana and bhakti are important. I just thought I'll discuss about this because we are in scriptural discussion sessions wherein we are showing interest in contemplating the path of jnana, but at the same time we are discussing a text which is primarily focusing on bhakti. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on how do we marry both these thought process together, both these paths together. As a matter of fact, we don't need to marry them, they are intertwined, just that we need to recognize they are intertwined. Because of our ego, sometimes we feel like, oh, I'm in this particular path, all the others are just inferior, meaningless. Anyone else who's in the other path, they need to grow up like me. So just so that we have an idea about it. So talking about jnana and bhakti, let's just look a little more into both of these. When we talk about jnana, jnana involves three main steps: Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana literally means to listen. To listen basically means to perceive. Perceive knowledge in every way possible from every source possible. Learn as much as you can. Be open to knowledge as it comes to you. So receive as well as we could. Shravana. Manana. Manana is to contemplate, just letting it come through this ear and go out of this ear, or come through this ear and go out of your mouth when you start boasting about yourself or your knowledge is not what we want. Once we have grasped them, the next step is to contemplate on them so that we make the right use of what we have learned or heard or perceived. So Shravana, next is Manana. The third one is Nitidhyasana, wherein we assimilate all that we have learned and contemplated on. We put them into action. What is the point? I do PhD in physics unless and until I actually do some research in physics and do some benefit to the society. That could be a good question. People can ask me, what was the use you did? What is the use of you doing PhD in computer science? You're singing bhajans and doing pujas and giving scriptural classes. What about computer science? And Amma is a perfect practical example of how a guru would be. She didn't let me go off my computer science background at all. Though I'm not directly involved in computer science research, I'm passively involved because Amma made sure I have at least a few PhD students in Amritapuri campus, Amrita University in India, and I am involved in the field. All that effort that has gone in should never go waste. So Amma made it a point. The first 2 or 3 years I was kind of absconding or MIA, missing in action, very happily just doing bhajans and satsangs. But Amma caught hold of me soon. After that, in 2015 or 16, she was like, how come you don't have any PhD students? You have to guide PhD students. So that way, so coming back to that point, what is the use all that we have grasped and contemplated on? If you don't assimilate it and put it into action, what is the use doing that? So the third step is Nitidhyasana. So Shravana, Manana, Nitidhyasana. The path of bhakti also has a few steps, so as to say Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Pada Sevana, Archana, Vandana, Dasya, Sakhya, Atma Nivedana. There are 9 of these. Shravana, beginning with the same. Here also we should be open to listening and grasping. In this case, the focus is more on grasping anything that belittles my ego. Not my esteem, but my false ego. So typically we should be open to listening to the glory of the form or the deity that we are focusing on. Because more we hear their glory, more we realize all that inflated ego that I have is of no use. So first step is Shravana. Shravana. Second, Kirtana. Not just listening to it, I should repeat it too. I should make it into a practice. I call out all those qualities too of the divine or my beloved deity that I am focusing on. So singing or calling out the glory of the central point of my devotion is Kirtana. Then Smarana. Smarana is, it's not just about outwardly thing, it has to be internalized too. So I regularly am fixed in the thought of the divine. My actions, my thoughts, my words, all should be ever enveloped in the devotion, in the love of that deity or that central point. So Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana. The fourth one is Pada Sevana. Pada Sevana, to worship the feet of my beloved deity. When you say feet, you may have heard me mention it when we do Pada Puja. It's not about just literally worshipping the feet. Like Amma says, Amma is least interested in having her feet worshipped. But because it is the tradition, long lasting tradition, Amma lets the disciple do the worship. Amma says, Amma would rather want us to go and clean a gutter or a drainage, or go and clean a park or go and clean some public place, be of benefit to some, put in that effort to clean that than my feet, is what Amma says. But when we focus on the Guru's feet or the deity's feet, the feet represents all the great qualities that they exemplify through their life, every moment of their life. So when we are worshipping the feet, we are actually worshipping all those great qualities. So to reflect on those great qualities and to imbibe them in ourselves is actual Pada Sevana. And then Archana. Archana is to offer. Archana typically is to offer flower petals, to offer our everything, our ego most importantly, our shortcomings, the things that are deeply rooted in ourselves, the tendencies, the habits that we have, which are not letting us rise. Offer all of them at the lotus feet. So that is Archana. Then comes Vandana. The Vandana is to pay obeisance, to always consider the focus point that we have, be it a deity, be it our guru, ever in a higher stage and ever look up to reach that higher stage. Again, in that process, sometimes due to our ego, we may feel like, is Amma really great or my guru really great? She's acting like this, she said this, that can disturb us. That's the process of how mind works. And you say, okay, let me look for some other guru now. We go on a guru shopping, right? Rather, if we have realized a true master, if we have come to a true master, our focus then should be to rise up to the level that they are. There, we need this attitude of Vandana, to consider them high up there and ever be motivated to rise up to that level. So that is Vandana. Dasya is the next step or next aspect. Dasya, to be of service. To be of service, not that the guru needs service. A person would be a deity or a Sadguru because they don't need any service, because they are completely detached from any form of materialistic pleasure. The service is for us to develop the attitude of humility. So Dasya. Sakhya. Sakhya basically means to have a relationship. Friendship is what it literally means. Rather, Sakhya is to develop a bond with the deity. A bond, when you say this 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 bond or this attachment is such that it nullifies all the other attachments. Again, the example that Amma always gives, and you may have heard me repeat it many times. Typically, walls in India, especially southern states of India, they are just left and right used for publicity. There may be movie posters and flyers stuck. There may be political party election and other kind of events, and then there is a big event happening, then there would be posters everywhere. So you build a house and you build a wall, it is going to get stuck with all these flyers. Invariably, that's going to happen. So as to avoid that to happen, what do? When we build the hall, we paint it afresh. You stick one little thing on it, telling stick no bills. So that itself is a flyer actually seen. But because that one little flyer will avoid all the other flyers to go on that wall. So that little flyer is helping us overcome other flyers. One display helps us overcome other displays. Similarly, the bond with the Guru, the bond with our deity is such that it helps us overcome all the other meaningless attachments. So Sakhya, and then Atma Nivedana. Atma Nivedana is to surrender. When you say surrender, it doesn't mean giving up or giving in. Surrender basically means to develop the attitude of acceptance. I will do my best. I'll give my 100,000% into what I'm trying to do. But I will complement it with the attitude of acceptance. Once I have done what I have done, I will develop the attitude of acceptance of what actually turns out as the result of that action. So that is what we refer to as surrender. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smarana, Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Pada Sevana, Archana, Vandana, Dasya, Sakhya, and Atmanivedana. So that is to do with Jnana. Again, I'm reiterating it, not that the deity needs all this from us. It's just for our own progress. It's to create purity in our thoughts, our words, and our action. This would be means for us to develop or make it our nature to be humble. That is the whole idea of overcoming our ego. So that would be the path of bhakti, devotion. Awakened Children, Volume 1, page 151. Amma says, what's that? Oh, we have it. You don't have the Awakened Children? There's no slide of Awakened Children? Oh, I forgot to put it. I thought I... Okay, anyway, I'll read it out. You sure it's not there? Okay. Okay, Awakened Children, Volume 1, page 151. Amma says, it starts with a group of devoted women were sitting around Amma. A few of them had taken a course on Vedanta. Amma said to them, the goal is jnana and the means is bhakti. Children, bhakti is the path to jnana. Devotion with love for God should arise. In this age, more concentration is gained through kirtana than through dhyana, meditation. The present atmosphere is always filled with different kinds of sound. Because of that, dhyana will be difficult. Concentration will not be gained easily. This can be overcome if kirtana is performed. Not only that, the atmosphere will also become pure in that process. Innocence will arise if one travels on the bhakti marga, the path of devotion. Innocence will be developed if we progress in the path of devotion. All can be seen with the attitude of brotherhood thereby. And actually, as a matter of fact, later in that passage Amma mentions, when we grow in the path of bhakti or devotion, we become beneficial for our own self and we become beneficial for others. Amma says it develops the attitude of innocence. That's verily what Hanuman, Lord Hanuman, is an embodiment of innocence, of humility, and of service to others, ever beneficial and helpful for others. I remember a few years ago, I guess 6 or 7 years ago now, we were traveling during Amma's North American tour. We were traveling from Los Angeles to Albuquerque. As always, Amma was driving by road with all the tour staff, and typically it happens that Amma's entourage, we leave early, immediately after Devi Bhava is over, we leave, and then the tour staff, the buses come a little later. There are about 10 buses or so, 8 to 10 buses, about 250 to 300 people, tour staff that travel with Amma. And typically there would be by 4 or 5 p.m. there would be a stop, a dinner, chai and dinner stop. And Amma would serve food, Amma would serve chai, and then Amma spends a couple of hours with all the tour staff, people share jokes, or there would be question answer session, etc. So I remember this particular stop from LA to Albuquerque, Amma put forth a question about devotion. What does everyone think about devotion? And different people had different things to say about, and the topic of gopis, of Vrindavan, came into the discussion. And Amma was talking about how the gopis are given the highest regard in terms of bhakti, their attitude towards Lord Krishna. They would forget everything else. They would forget of their own needs, their family's needs, and they were completely dedicated to Lord Krishna. If they find that Lord Krishna has come out of his house and is, doing Rasa Leela, they just forget everything. And there are these funny episodes that are in different forms of epics that they mention. A gopi who is cooking, she would just run to Lord Krishna with the ladle in her hand. Someone else who is nursing the child would even forget about the child and run towards Krishna, or run with the child to Lord Krishna. Someone else who is in the shower would just run to Lord Krishna like that. They were so least bothered about their own self. They were so least conscious of their ego that it was that pure level of love and devotion that they had for Lord Krishna. And it is widely believed that all the seers and sages of the ancient times, for all the tapas, for all the penance that they went through, they couldn't get the exposure or the access that gopis got to the divine Lord. And it is believed that the gopis were born, or these sages and seers were born as the gopis in Vrindavan for all the effort that they put in, that they could have a life dedicated to Lord Krishna, accessible, where Lord Krishna or the divine is accessible to them in a human form, in form of a cute little child, a boy, cute little boy who they loved, who they adored, who they had pure bhakti, devotion towards. But Amma, when she mentioned about gopis, she said, but if you consider Hanuman, he is a step forward. Not that gopis' bhakti is in any way inferior. Rather, Hanuman's step is a step, Hanuman's devotion or bhakti is a step forward, because his bhakti was out of knowledge. His bhakti was out of understanding. His bhakti was ever with wisdom. It was not about, we can relate to it with the typical situation we would have around Amma. Suddenly, Amma is giving darshan, and suddenly it is the rumor just spreads around the hall, telling Amma is going to sing after the bhajan, after the last person getting darshan. So that seems like the last person, and as he comes there or she comes there, Amma is going to sing a bhajan. And when you hear that, 90% of us are such. We don't care about whether I'm doing the bookstore seva or the person I was talking to for the last 1 hour, I forget about them. And this person will be like, I was just talking to this person. How come he's sitting there right next to Amma? And he never called me. We are in that That's like the gopis' bhakti. It's that dedication, and with that dedication, we just rush and we are just there. But Hanuman's bhakti is such wherein it's not about me getting a chance with Amma, rather, how can I utilize this time to share it with others? Or should I think about Amma's comfort? If I crowd around Amma, will that bring any discomfort to her? If so, should I stay away? Should I sacrifice on my selfish motive? Would be what Hanuman would think. So Amma says Hanuman is a step forward because his bhakti, his dedication, there was no concession in that. But his dedication, his dedication was such, that it had that foundation of knowledge, the foundation of wisdom, the foundation of maturity. And that is what we are going to try to focus on as we read about Lord Hanuman in the 40 verses written in Hanuman Chalisa. Again, sticking on to the topic of bhakti. Bhakti can be of two different types: Kamya bhakti and Nishkamya bhakti. We have come across the term kama. Kama basically means desire. So kamya, with respect to desire, it's an adjective form of the term kama. So kamya bhakti, devotion that arises out of need, devotion that arises out of desire. Like Amma mentions, most of the people, when they first come to meet Amma, they come out of some compulsion or some sorry state in life, that they come to pray to Amma to help alleviate them from that situation, or some way help them in that situation. And in that process, and you may have heard Amma mention that so many different times during the webcast between bhajans, how the various people who are living in an Amritapuri ashram, they first came maybe asking for Amma, help me with my green card, or Amma, help me with my citizenship process, or Amma, help me with my relationship with this person, Amma, help me with my job. And eventually they have come to the level of giving up whatever they were desiring for that time and now living in Amritapuri doing selfless service, be it at the university, be it at any of the projects that the ashram is involved in. So it more or less starts with Kamya Bhakti. We develop Bhakti because, and it's not just about one life. The Kamya Bhakti would have started maybe many lives ago. So Bhakti, one form of Bhakti is about Kamya Bhakti, because I desire, I pray for something, I have devotion towards you. It's like the person who is going to the exam hall to write an exam, is going to the exam hall to write an exam. On the way, he thought, I'll just go to the temple, pray, so that I'll do the exam much better. He goes to the temple, oh my Lord, please help me, or goes to the church or temple, whatever the place of worship is. Oh my Lord, please help me do well in this exam. If you help me pass in this exam, or help me get as much this desired grade that I have, I'm going to, offer you so many gold coins, or I'm going to offer you this amount of prasad, or I'm going to offer you so many flowers, or whatever. There'll be some kind of prayer that he would have. Then he goes to the exam, and because he didn't study for the exam, he fails. And on the way back, he goes to the temple and he says, I knew you will not help me. I wonder why I came to the temple. Exactly, that's the question. Why did you go to the temple? If you went to the temple for a business deal, temple is not the place for that. So Kamya Bhakti is like that. I need something from you. That's why I have devotion towards you. I remember listening to this particular story or joke. There was this little boy, let us name him Somu. And this little boy was not very well mannered and would be up to a lot of problems and troubles that he would give others. But when it was almost Christmas time, he wanted a gift from his mother. And his mother knew of his shortcomings, and she wanted to teach him some lesson, or she wanted him to improve in some way or the other. And he wanted a bicycle for Christmas. So he asks the mother, "Mother, can you please help me get a bicycle for myself? Or can you give me a bicycle for Christmas?" And the mother says, "No way, I'm not doing that unless and until you do something about your behavior. You're getting into trouble every now and then at school, with your friends, with the neighborhood here. You need to do something. Let me tell you. You contemplate on all that you do, all the mistakes that you have done all this while. Write it down in a big letter, list them out in a letter, take it to God in the temple nearby, or take it to the God in the church nearby, and submit it to God, and promise to God that you will become a good boy the next year. And if you promise God that you'll be a good boy the next year, I'm going to get you a bicycle." He says, "Why not?" Then he writes this huge list of huge list of things that he was up to the whole year, and apologizing. What do we do in church? We do a confession, confessing to God that I did all this. Please forgive me, and I pray that my mother gets me a bicycle. Then he goes to the church, and in no time he's back. Mom was quite surprised. Why? How come he's back so quickly? He still has a letter in his hand. He goes back into his room, and he's locked in his room for 1 hour, comes back with a different letter. Now he goes to the church. The mom gets quite inquisitive of what happened. Why did he come back? Did something change? Did he, a fresh new leaf that he turned into? Something changed in him. And then she follows him without him knowing, and she sees he's very sincerely praying, placing the letter the bottom of the altar of Jesus Christ, and then he goes back home. And the mom is quite curious about what did he write in the letter. She goes and actually retrieves the letter, opens it up, and there is only one line. The boy says, "I have kidnapped Mother Mary. If you want her back in the church, better get me the cycle, else you're not getting Mother Mary back." And the idol of Mother Mary in the church is missing now. He took that away. So it's not like a business deal. Kamya Bhakti. Bhakti, of course, that could be our first step. Like Amma gives the example of so many people who have come to Amma like that. But we shouldn't be stuck there. Bhakti is not about getting things, but Bhakti is about giving up things. So Kamya Bhakti. The other one is Nishkamya Bhakti. Nihi basically negates the meaning of Kamya. So Nishkamya Bhakti is basically selfless bhakti. Not that I'm desiring something, not that I want something from you. That is pure form of bhakti that we need to elevate ourselves to. And when we talk about Nishkamya Bhakti, there are 5 bhavas, or 5 attitudes or 5 ways of expressing the bhakti or Nishkamya Bhakti, selfless devotion towards our beloved deity. It could be Shanta Bhava, Sakhya Bhava, Vatsalya Bhava, Madhurya Bhava, and Dasya Bhava. First one, Shanta Bhava. Shanta basically means peace, silence. My expression of devotion towards you is through silence. There is nothing external about it. It's all internal. I just meditate on you, and that's my devotion towards you. It's completely that of internalizing. And it's not about not doing. It's not about non-doership. Silence is about silencing the mind. Silence to imbibing the things the spiritual values that we learn. So Shanta Bhava is that. 2 is Sakhya Bhava. Sakhya, like we came across it a little while ago, Sakhya, friendship. So have an attitude of friendship towards your beloved deity. Like how Arjuna, the attitude Arjuna had towards Krishna initially. After Gita Upadesha, he had a different attitude towards Krishna. But otherwise, Krishna was Arjuna's cousin. So his attitude towards Krishna was that of Sakhya Bhava, friendship. Third one is Vatsalya Bhava. Vatsalya translates to compassion. The attitude of a mother, Vatsalya, like Mother Yashoda had towards Lord Krishna, baby Krishna. The attitude of a mother, caring and nursing. So sometimes you may have heard us sing bhajan wherein we consider the Divine Mother as a little baby and bathing Divine Mother, feeding Divine Mother, making up Divine Mother, brushing the Devi's hair, applying the, what do you call for it, eyeliner and things like that. What do you call for kanmashi in English? Huh? What is it called? Mascara. Okay. Okay, the black thing, whatever. I'm not able to get the pronunciation. It's fine. So, considering the divine as a little one and having the attitude of a mother, having the attitude of compassion is Vatsalya Bhava. Then Madhurya Bhava is wherein we have a bond with the divine as a beloved, like the gopis had towards Lord Krishna, like Mirabai had towards Lord Krishna, like Andal had towards Lord Vishnu. It's about my everything is you. Even my life, my materialistic life is also you. Everything is just you. I can't think of anything else. That attitude, Vatsalya Bhava. It's not about bodily attraction. It's not about the trivial level of love. It's much higher. Like the example of Radha. You may have heard Amma mention this, or you may have even heard me mention this during our scriptural discussion, wherein, Lord Krishna was always known to be the beloved of the gopis and Radha especially. And we have heard Amma mention Radha stories so many times. And Lord Krishna's consort, Rukmini, asks Lord Krishna, I've heard so much about Radha and I've never seen her. Can you please draw her picture for me? We have discussed this during scriptural discussions before. Anyway, it's worthwhile repeating it. So, can you please draw Radha's picture? Krishna says, why not? I vividly remember her face. I'll draw her picture for you. And he draws Radha's picture and shows it to Rukmini, and she says, don't play the fool with me. I asked for Radha's picture, not your picture. He was like, oh, I did it by mistake. Let me try it again. And then he draws Radha's face again, shows it to Rukmini, and she's now not very happy, not very pleased, telling, don't make a fool of myself. I'm asking for Radha's picture, not your picture. And every time Lord Krishna tries, he ends up drawing his own face. And then he tells Rukmini, I cannot see Radha different from myself. Me and Radha are like Shiva and Shakti. We are like Jivatma and Paramatma. We are just one and the same. If you ask me to draw Radha as a different person, it's just impossible for me. So that is the gist of Madhurya Bhakti, to unite, to become one. And then finally, Dasya Bhakti. Dasya Bhakti, to have devotion in form of service. And the example is verily Hanuman, that who we are going to focus on. To have that, in spite of all the abilities you have, to practice humility by being of service to the divine, to the form that we are devoted to, with the conviction that what my deity wants would ever be will be of benefit to others and the world, and I will put my heart and soul in doing so. That is the attitude of Dasya Bhakti. That is the attitude of a Dasa, one who is of service. So, Bhakti, Kamya Bhakti, Nishkamya Bhakti. In Nishkamya Bhakti, we have Shanta Bhakti, we have Shanta Bhakti, Sakhya Bhakti, Vatsalya Bhakti, Madhurya Bhakti, and Dasya Bhakti. So, we will end the discussion for today here, and we'll continue with discussing about Tulasi Das, who is the composer of the Hanuman Chalisa that we're going to discuss about, and we'll also discuss a little bit about the whole context of Hanuman, or the whole context of Hanuman being Lord Rama's disciple. We'll just go over the Ramayana sequence the next session and then move on to Hanuman Chalisa. If you have attended these scriptural discussions before, you would be quite aware my introductions are never short. They are quite long, sometimes 2 or 3 sessions. But I think it's worth for us to have a full picture, a context of it, and then go into it. That way we would be able to appreciate it much better. Just that after every Wednesday, as we have this session, in the end of every session, we will chant the Hanuman Chalisa. Rather, we'll sing the Hanuman Chalisa with the instruments. So that's why I'm ending early. We have 7 more minutes. So I guess Hanuman Chalisa should be less than 10 minutes. So we'll sing the Hanuman Chalisa and then conclude praying for world peace. So stay back. We will have the words and the meaning projected. And if you're familiar with it, please join chanting the Hanuman Chalisa. Else, you can just focus on the meaning as we chant the Hanuman Chalisa. Om Amriteshwariyai Namah. श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज, श्री गुरु निज मन मुकुर सुधार, निज मन मुकुर बरनौ रघुबर बिमल जसु, जो दायक फल चारि, बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके, सुमिरा पवन कुमार, बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि, हरहु कलेस विकार। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर, रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा, महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी, कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी, कंचन वरन विराज सुबेसा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा, हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराज, कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साज, शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन, विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबे को आतुर, प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज सवारे। लाय संजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुबीर हरषि उर लाए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बढ़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत ही सम भाई। सहस बदन तुम्हरो जस गावै, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावै। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद सारद सहित अहीसा। जम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते, कवि कोविद कहि सकै कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा, राम मिलाय राजपद दीन्हा। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। तुम्हरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। जुग सहस्र जो जन पर भानु, लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानु। प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि, जलधि लांघि गए अचर जनाई। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हरे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे। सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना। आपन तेज सम्हारो आपै, तीनों लोक हाकते कापै। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। नासै रोग हरै सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावै, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावै। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावै, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावै। चारों जुग पर ताप तुम्हारा, है परिसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नौ निधि के दाता, असबर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहा रघुपति के दासा। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। सिया राम सिया राम सिया राम, जय हनुमान। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावै, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावै। अंत काल रघुवरपुर जाय, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाय। और देवता चित्त न धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटै मिटै सब पीरा, जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई। जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूटहि बंधि महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजे नाथ हृदय मह डेरा। कीजे नाथ हृदय मह डेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। ओ माता सीता की जय, ओ माता सीता की जय। ओ भ्राता लक्ष्मण की जय, ओ भ्राता लक्ष्मण की जय। भरत और शत्रुघ्न की जय, भरत और शत्रुघ्न की जय। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। As always, let us conclude praying to the Almighty that every being in the creation be happy, content, and peaceful. Just as a reminder, we'll continue the discussion the next Wednesday again at 7:30 p.m. and we'll chant the Hanuman Chalisa at the end of every session every Wednesday as we meet. So let us end with the Shanti Mantra. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om.